We need to have a very serious, very uncomfortable, and long overdue conversation about what is actually taking place across the landscape of women's professional basketball. Because while the league office, the broadcast partners, and an increasingly vocal contingent of players seem determined to drown this sport in a relentless swamp of manufactured controversies, online posturing, and cultural grievances, the singular force driving this entire commercial revolution just delivered another masterclass that leaves the entire basketball world without an excuse.
37 points and 10 assists over the weekend. By the way, she has more games with 30 points plus and 10 assists plus than the entire league ever. She's got 5.
Than the entire league combined. Than the entire league combined in the history of the league. Crazy work.
The rest of the league in its history has 4.
Wow.
She is Steph Curry, but with kind of a Michael Jordan mindset. All business, all basketball, has no opinion or comment on the controversies. The Fever offense is not only number 1 in this league at 97 a game, it's the best offense in league history because of Caitlin Clark. So with all this drama and nonsense around her, Caitlin Clark, number 1 in assists, number 3 in scoring, best offense in league history, greatest shooting range in league history. She's not driving the controversy like Michael Jordan. She's all business. And ask yourself, is the controversy bad? I know what you're thinking. Oh, it's terrible. Okay. Well, if you want to climb Everest, there's going to be some storms at the top. The path to growth is always through discomfort. When did the UFC explode? Conor McGregor. They have squeezed every ounce of sweat out of his career.
On a national broadcast, sports media veteran Colin Cowherd articulated a comparison that should be studied by every executive in the WNBA league office. He looked directly at the television camera and stated, without hesitation, that Caitlin Clark represents the on-court revolutionary brilliance of Stephen Curry, combined with the cold, ruthless, unyielding mindset of Michael Jordan. Let that concept sink in. Let it marinate for a moment. Stephen Curry's game paired with Michael Jordan's mindset. When you strip away the bad faith debates, the petty jealousies, and the endless noise of social media feeds, that description captures the exact essence of what we are witnessing. Caitlin Clark is all business. She is all basketball. She shows up to the arena, steps between the lines, dismantles opposing defensive schemes from 35 feet out, and completely refuses to offer commentary or indulge in the toxic sideshows that have consumed this league. In a sport that seems to find every conceivable way to step on a rake and create self-inflicted public relations disasters, Caitlin Clark is the lone superstar who simply laces up her sneakers, dominates the game, and lets her performance deliver the verdict.
And Conor McGregor, controversy, some of it ugly, follows him everywhere. Earned, by the way. When I loved boxing, and arguably it was front page in American sports sections, when Muhammad Ali was a conscientious objector to the war. Yeah. Golden State, stacked roster, last dynasty. Adam Silver didn't like it at all. Literally changed the CBA. Patriots, Spygate, Deflategate. Dodgers dynasty, unfair, stacked, deferred payments. College football and basketball ratings up, last 3-4 years with NIL, transfer portal, the entire time, the entire off seasons. Shrouded, clouded in controversy. Now you got NFL guys going to college and the ratings are going up. Sometimes to get distracted people focused, got to shake things up a little bit. I mean, American Idol is the highest rated music show ever. It's the one that had a really controversial guy on the panel, Simon Cowell. Go look at sports when Tiger Woods broke through. TV networks, I was at one, dealt with it for years. Overexposure, give me a break. We were following every single Tiger shot, lead or not, and by year 2 to 3, he was in the lead always. So I keep hearing about FIFA. We just had World Cup smashed the ratings, the World Cup, the entire time. Rigged, Argentina, getting every break. This thing looks rigged. Argentina, Messi, the popular team getting the calls. The champions going for a repeat. And FIFA, by the way, there's been claims of corruption forever. The Olympics.
And yet, look at how the institution has responded. Look at how Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and the league's official apparatus have handled the greatest commercial asset to ever walk through their doors. Instead of wrapping their arms around a generational catalyst who has fundamentally transformed the economics of their business, the league has maintained a baffling, almost hostile ambivalence. While the sport is engulfed in controversy, while opposing players engage in physical retaliation on the floor and post grievances online, the leadership at the top has failed to embrace the one individual who made their current prosperity possible. Consider the sheer absurdity of what took place on the court just days ago. In Chicago, Caitlin Clark put on an absolute shooting clinic, dropping 37 points, dishing out 10 assists, and knocking down 8 three-pointers, while her backcourt partner Kelsey Mitchell poured in 30 points of her own. Together, that starting backcourt combined for an astonishing 14 of 21 from beyond the arc. They put on a display of high-octane space and pace basketball that dismantled the defense and ended the game with an emphatic 23-point blowout. With that performance, Caitlin Clark secured her 5th career regular season game of at least 30 points and 10 assists. Think about the historical weight of that number. Caitlin Clark now possesses more 30-point, 10-assist games in her career by herself than the entire rest of the WNBA combined in the 28-year history of the league. Let that mathematical reality register. Take every legendary playmaker, every Hall of Fame guard, every iconic talent who has ever suited up across nearly 3 decades of competition, put all of their 30-point, 10-assist games into a single pile, and a second-year guard from Iowa has surpassed that entire collective history alone. And what was the response from the league and its primary media partners? Silence. Absolute deafening silence. The WNBA remained quiet. ESPN was quiet as a mouse. NBC, USA Network, Amazon Prime. The very broadcast partners that have seen their viewership metrics shatter all-time records whenever Indiana takes the floor refuse to celebrate the historic milestone. These networks are more than happy to broadcast the games, cash the advertising checks, and boast about historic rating spikes. But when the final buzzer sounds, they provide zero sustained institutional promotion for their biggest draw. In fact, when mainstream outlets like ESPN do decide to dedicate editorial segments to the sport, they frequently use their airtime not to celebrate their #1 box office attraction, but to tear her down in an artificial effort to uplift Paige Buchers or Olivia Miles. Colin Cowherd has been one of the few prominent voices on a major national network who has remained remarkably consistent on this topic since 2024. He has stated plainly what the independent numbers have proven all along. The sole reason we are talking about this league at this scale, the sole reason mainstream sports fans are tuning in by the millions, is Caitlin Clark. That is not an opinion. That is an empirical fact reflected in every ticket manifest, every merchandise report, and every television rating produced over the past 2 years. Now, examine the stark contrast in professional discipline between Clark and the rest of the league. We live in an era where professional athletes are chronically, toxically, online. In the WNBA, that dynamic has reached an unprecedented level of dysfunction. Look at the behavior of prominent players across the landscape. You have Angel Reese constantly posting provocative statements on Twitter. You have Dijonai Carrington living on threads, dropping dates, and fueling online hostility. You have Natasha Cloud engaging in continuous back-and-forth arguments on social platforms. You have Brianna Turner jumping into comment sections to debate fans. You even have De'Erica Hamby taking to public forums to make aggressive statements about what she would do if someone physically challenged a family member. And during this exact same weekend of competition, what were the cameras capturing on the sidelines? In Chicago, courtside microphones and cameras picked up a tense, animated verbal exchange between Natasha Cloud and former NBA player Enes Kanter Freedom, who was sitting in the front row. The sideshows simply never stop. The players seem completely incapable of resisting the urge to jump onto digital platforms, engage with trolls, beg for attention, and demand validation. And through all of it, where is Caitlin Clark? Caitlin Clark has Twitter, she has Instagram, she has an audience that dwarfs every other player in the sport combined. Yet, she exercises total, ironclad professional restraint. She does not engage with internet feuds. She does not post cryptic subliminal messages. She does not jump into comment sections to play the victim or justify a poor shooting night. She clocks in, runs the offense, takes the physical punishment, conducts her media obligations with measured composure, and goes home to her real life. While everyone around her is desperate to be seen online, Clark understands that true power lies in performance, not in digital noise. To understand why this cultural clash is so volatile, you have to look at the broader history of professional sports and examine how transformational superstars historically alter the business landscape. Cowherd correctly pointed out that what we are witnessing with Caitlin Clark is directly comparable to Tiger Woods entering the PGA Tour in 1997 or Serena Williams bursting into professional tennis. When Tiger Woods arrived, he didn't just win tournaments. He completely restructured the television contracts, expanded the prize purses for every golfer on the tour, and brought millions of casual sports fans into a game that had previously operated in a country club silo. The veteran golfers who had spent decades playing for modest purses suddenly found themselves competing for millions of dollars solely because number one on the leaderboard was drawing unprecedented eyeballs. However, because women's sports coverage is so uniquely weighed down by identity politics, cultural nuances, and media sensitivity, the discourse surrounding Caitlin Clark has become completely unmoored from standard sports logic. Look at the combat sports world as a fascinating historical counterexample. When the Ultimate Fighting Championship experienced its massive commercial explosion under Conor McGregor, the sport had already established structural stepping stones. The UFC built its credibility and audience gradually through recognizable, respected eras of champions, from Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz to Anderson Silva, Rampage Jackson, Rashad Evans, Lyoto Machida, Roy Nelson, and John Jones. The organization climbed a ladder of progressive growth before McGregor arrived to blow the roof off the pay-per-view model. The WNBA had no intermediate stepping stones. It had no gradual ladder of commercial ascension. For nearly 3 decades, the league operated as a subsidized entity that lost tens of millions of dollars annually, playing in front of half-empty arenas with minimal television coverage. And then, overnight, without warning, Caitlin Clark walked through the door and propelled the entire operation from obscurity straight into the mainstream stratosphere. And how did Conor McGregor build his empire? It wasn't the ugly controversies outside the cage. In fact, the post-fight brawls and reckless incidents ultimately marked the beginning of his competitive decline. What built McGregor into a global sports icon was stepping into the octagon, calling his shot, backing up every word, knocking out Jose Aldo in 9 seconds, and fighting Floyd Mayweather on the biggest stage on earth. It was pure, unadulterated competitive delivery. Caitlin Clark is doing the exact same thing on the hardwood, minus the circus. She isn't throwing dollies through bus windows. She isn't starting brawls in the crowd. She is simply dropping 37 points and 10 assists on your home floor, waving off defensive instigators in transition, and letting the scoreboard speak for itself. Look at what she is accomplishing from a purely tactical and statistical standpoint. Caitlin Clark is currently orchestrating the greatest statistical season by a point guard in WNBA history. She is leading the most lethal, prolific offensive team the league has ever seen. And she is doing all of this while playing under head coach Stephanie White, a defensive-minded tactician whose clunky, rigid, stationary hub schemes demonstrate a complete inability to comprehend modern pace and space offensive geometry. Think about the sheer difficulty of that reality. In spite of a coaching staff that frequently attempts to slow the game down, in spite of an offense that has at times turned her into an off-ball spectator, in spite of absorbing uncalled physical fouls from 94 feet away, she is still setting all-time league records on a weekly basis. When basketball purists search for historical stylistic archetypes to describe her game, the comparisons illustrate just how unique her skill set truly is. Some observers compare her to John Stockton, possessing that exact same surgical court vision, laser-accurate passing timing, and pick-and-roll mastery, but upgraded with limitless three-point shooting range and modern transition speed. Others look at her and see the modern evolution of Steve Nash. But she is Steve Nash with an aggressive, predatory scoring mentality. When Steve Nash ran the legendary 7 seconds or less offense in Phoenix, he was historically unselfish to a fault. Nash would consistently pass up his own shot to set up Amare Stoudemire on the dive, find Sean Marion running the wing, hit Joe Johnson in the corner, or feed Quentin Richardson and Jim Jackson along the perimeter. Nash had to be begged by his coaching staff to hunt his own scoring. Caitlin Clark possesses that exact same transcendent playmaking vision, but she pairs it with the aggressive instinct to pull up from 35 feet and bury a dagger when the defense sags. To dismiss her impact by claiming that hitting logo threes is just a gimmick, or to argue that other players shoot higher percentages on minimal volume, is to completely misunderstand the geometry of basketball. Stephen Curry was never the fourth best shooter on his team. He changed the entire sport because his shooting gravity forced defenses to guard him from the moment he crossed half court, opening up the entire floor for everyone around him. Caitlin Clark provides that exact same structural gravity every single night. The critics who continue to resist this reality are running out of ground to stand on. They want to attribute her success to anything other than basketball brilliance. They want to frame the massive audience interest as a cultural anomaly, rather than a response to generational athletic excellence. They want to invent narratives about white privilege to explain away why an athlete who averages 26 points and 9 assists is dominating a league that voted her the 11th best guard at midseason. The truth is simple, it is direct, and it is undeniable. Caitlin Clark is all basketball. She does not care about the noise. She does not care about the manufactured media storylines. She does not care about the online grievances of players who resent the spotlight she commands. She is a basketball purist who arrived with the generational skill of Stephen Curry, the ruthless competitive focus of Michael Jordan, and the court vision of Steve Nash. The WNBA has been handed the golden ticket of professional sports. They have been gifted an athlete who can elevate the entire league into permanent financial sustainability and global relevance. But to capitalize on that gift, the league leadership, the broadcast partners, and the veteran establishment must stop stepping on rakes, stop indulging in petty sideshows, and finally embrace the singular superstar who has put the entire sport on her back. Caitlin Clark has done her part. She has delivered the ratings, sold the tickets, broken the records, and elevated the product. It is time for the rest of the league to look in the mirror, leave the drama behind, and let the greatest show in basketball continue to play.